So again, just showing the page uh, where we keep the information updated here, but I've added the recording of yesterday here. It's not here as a video yet because we haven't uploaded to YouTube, but that will be there hopefully tomorrow. And then the link to the slides of today are also here. So again, we'll start. Well, welcome everyone for day 3. I hope you're enjoying this. So today is a bit more fun. Finally, right? Enough of the lectures, but we'll still look into terminology, but playing games is not gonna be just a standard webinar. We're using a drawing exercise to know the number of hidden layers to use in a neural network. And we will also play with something called Tensorflow Playground, where you can build your own neural network, which is pretty cool. And then we can do the discussion part as well. Before we start, I'm gonna do that quick survey again, just to gauge everyone's opinions. So if you can please go to menti.com. I'm gonna post it in the chat and use the code 21496544. It just helps to see how everyone is feeling about. So the details are here at the top as well, but it's in the chat. So this is more, after yesterday and the first day, like how are you feeling? If you feel that your confidence has improved a little bit over these concepts or maybe got more complicated. So just trying to assess. We'll give a couple minutes. I know some people are joining. We're getting some results. Here we have 5 people. Looks very similar to yesterday, which is it's good. It's not bad. Okay, we have 7 people, maybe 2, 3 more, and then we can go to the next question. Okay, it's increasing. That's good. Right, maybe one more. Okay, maybe we should go then. We move on to the next question, and that's regarding the pace again, because yesterday we introduced more, I guess, complicated, concepts, more focused on neural networks. So it's important to see how you guys felt about that. Okay. So we had 8 people before. Now we have 6. That's okay, 7. So a couple more seconds to see if anyone else, but I guess we have an idea already. Okay, perfect. Yeah, thanks for answering the survey. This is good. Going back here to the presentation. So just a recap, we talked about a lot of things yesterday. We remembered like what was, artificial neural networks, the concept, how that differs from just neural networks, like how people use those terms interchangeably, how to think about, what those terms mean. It talks about perceptron is the, most simple, fundamental, it's the neuron of the network. We talked about multi-layer perceptron, which is, having more neurons in your hidden layer. We talked about training and test data, how much you should set for training, how much you should set for test data. We talked about activation functions. We saw there are many types of activation functions. We talked about inference, right, which is, moving forward in your network. So it's actually like doing the classification. It's the final step. We talked about backpropagation, where the model learns from the errors and propagates backwards those errors to adjust the weights. And we're gonna talk about this in the demo as well. We learned about objective function, which is also helps you improve how to set up the weights, and then stochastic graded descent, which is trying to optimize the objective function. We talked about overfitting, when your model gets so used to gets it's so closely related to your training data that your training accuracy, it can be super high, but then when you test the model, the results might not be so good, and that's because the model is only working well when it's using that same training set. We talked about recurrent neural networks, and that's when the hidden layers, the neurons share information, so they can bring information, from prior neurons. And we talked about time series, like satellite time series. How can that be useful in this case? Especially when we have, different crop types, we can look into phenology and all of that. And we talked about convolutional neural networks, right, which is the most type of deep learning algorithm used for image recognition. Since we're talking about satellite imagery here, it's what we've used so far. We talked about what is a convolution. It's just looking into certain part of your image and extracting the edge features of your image. We talked about pooling, which is just making the dimensions smaller so you can process faster without losing important information. Flattening your all of that information so that you can have one layer input, and having that fully connected, meaning that all your input layers are connected to your hidden layers, and then finally having your output at the end. So this first step we talked about, it's feature learning, just learning about the features of your input data, and then the actual classification after you flatten your data set. So we talked about a lot of things, learned about a lot of concepts. And that's why today we're gonna do something more, hands-on. I hope this is going to be fun. We can use this Google Jamboard, or if you prefer, you can just grab a piece of paper and a pen, if you prefer. But we'll be doing drawing exercise. So I'm gonna post the link here in the chat and see if everyone can join this Google Jamboard. But if you prefer, you can just use a piece of paper and pen for drawing. So let me open here. Let's see if you guys can access this. But yeah, I can see a lot of people already there. What you basically see is just this empty sheet of, it's kind of like a sheet of paper, and there are more than one. There, I have here 4. So we're gonna draw, so you can like kind of choose a pen and like do a drawing here. So we'll test this out. Just keep that in mind. I think everyone can draw together. Maybe we'll separate like 4 people by sheet of paper. But let's go first through the exercise that we're gonna do. And this is, you're gonna talk about the hidden layers, right? How to define how many hidden layers we have. So first, this is a very simple example. We're gonna do two. This one is gonna be more demonstration. We're not gonna draw anything now, just for the second example. But this is just, a classification problem where you have two classes as shown here, right? You have these green circles and you have the red crosses. So it's just two classes. So the first question to ask is, are hidden layers required or not? And here's a hint, hidden layers are related to the boundary needed to separate the classes. So thinking about, this spot here with your data, think about it, visually. How would you set a boundary to, separate these two classes? And if anyone wants to answer the question, you can, post in the chat or just say out loud. Do you think hidden layers are required here in this case, or is this, a very simple yes, need? Bore said yes. So 4 layers. Okay. Why do you mind like sharing why do you think it is needed? Need to separate classes, right? So it's 1 layer, so Tan said. Okay, we're gonna, yeah, that's good. Good. Someone said 4, someone said 1. We're gonna look into that. But yeah, the answer here is yes, you do need hidden layers, and that's because we saw, artificial neural networks, they work, mainly with nonlinear data. So in this case here, we wouldn't be able to separate these two classes with just one line, right? We need to, have like a curve here to separate the two classes. So that's how we define if a network needs a hidden layer or not. It's when you cannot use just one line to separate your data. You can still use you can still like not use hidden layers to try to classify this, but your classification accuracy might not be that good. But the main point is that these classes seem to be non-linearly separated, and that's how you say, okay, so maybe we do need a hidden layer here in our network. So now that we know that we need to use hidden layers, we ask ourselves, so what is the required number of hidden layers? Some people said 4, some people said 1. And what is the number of hidden neurons across each hidden layer, right? Because we saw that a hidden layer can have, more than one neuron. So I know some people already guessed the number of layers. Any guess for like the number of neurons across each hidden layer? Because remember we had like 2 inputs. This is the input layer, and then a hidden layer can have 1, 2, or 3 different neurons. So 2 neurons, Sutton said. Okay. So 3, Boris said 3. And with this example, it's just one example. We can, have different architecture, like different designs. So we'll look into this simple example. So, okay, we had a 4. So let's look what this says. These are pretty much the instructions we're gonna go through to define, the number of hidden layers and hidden neurons. So based on the data, what we're gonna do is draw an expected decision boundary to separate the classes. Then we're gonna, change the decision boundary to set of lines, right? Instead of, having just one curved line, we can make them two separate lines, so set of lines. And note that the combination of such lines should yield to the decision boundary. So, those lines should be connected somehow. Then the number of selected lines represents the number of hidden neurons in the first hidden layer. And this is all text, but we're going to look at the drawing. But these are the steps, and you can always, for example 2, you can come back to these steps and try to do example 2. And then to connect the lines created by the previous layer, a new hidden layer is added. And then, this new hidden layer, a new hidden layer is added each time you need to create connections among the lines in the previous hidden layer. This is all very abstract right now, but we're going to understand this. And then the number of hidden neurons is each hidden layer equals the number of connections to be made. So these are the steps. So let's see how it looks now. So again, we have that example where we have two classes here. We define that yes, we need a hidden layer because we cannot separate this data with just one line, right? So two options here that we could separate these two classes to split them is this one on the left is doing this curve right here where it's separating the green from the red, and you can also do the other way around as well, right? Do decision boundary this way. So we're gonna focus on this one on the left actually. So that's the one we're gonna be moving forward. So from the steps, we are now gonna replace the decision boundary by a set of lines. And the lines, they start from the points at which the boundary curve change the direction. So at such points here, in this case, it's like here and here. These two lines are being placed here, and then you can see that they are in different directions, right? But they connected. They connect here. They need to be connected. And because there is only one point here, which is this gray circle, at which the boundary curve changes the direction, then there will be just two lines required. So we don't need more lines, right? Just two lines is sufficient. And this means that, there are two single layer perceptron networks. You can think of the lines as the perceptron, like the neuron. Each perceptron will produce a line. So knowing that there are just two lines required to represent the decision boundary, this tells us that the first hidden layer will have two hidden neurons. So we drew the decision boundary. Because it changes direction, we need to draw two sets of lines, and those two sets of lines will represent two hidden neurons in our first hidden layer. And you can think of the two hidden neurons. They are a linear classifier, which is it's this linear it's this line here in the figure. So when you have two classifier, you have two outputs, right? One for each neuron. And we want to build a classification where we get just one output at the end, right? Not two outputs for each line, for each classifier. So the outputs of the two hidden neurons are to be merged into a single output. So in other words, the two lines are to be connected by another neuron like this, right? So if we leave just the lines as they are, we're gonna have two outputs, but we want just one output. So we connect the two lines with one neuron, which will be our output neuron. So how do you think the architecture would look like? So we talked about one hidden layer, two neurons, right? I think I kind of gave the answer already, and then two outputs. So this is just an example. This is not the answer. Just think about how, from this drawing where we had the decision boundary, we had two lines which are our two neurons of our hidden layer, and then we needed to connect these two lines to have just one output and not two outputs. So the architecture would look something like this, right? You have your two data, your x1 and x2, the crosses and the circles, that's the input layer. We have just one hidden layer, and because we drew two lines, we have two neurons here, and then that connection that we made to connect the two separate lines, that's our output layer. Otherwise, we would have, if we didn't connect the two lines, it would be something like this, right? You have an output here, and then you have an output here, and that's not what we want, right? That's why we merge these two lines into just one output. Does that make sense? It's one simple example. Now you're gonna do by yourselves the second example. But yeah, does this make sense? Like how, first you draw to separate how you can split the data, then you draw the lines, then each line represents one neuron. And because we want just one output and each neuron, it means that it's gonna have two outputs. We merge those two into one, and that's how we get one output at the end. Does that make sense? Was that clear enough? Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah, I can go back for sure.
Andre,
Yeah.
I think they like the input, the hidden layer, and the outputs, right? So if we try to relate it to the reality, for example, we do the crop mapping, yeah. The input means the sample, huh? the sample data, right? And the hidden layer is what is it, and the output, I think it is the map showing different crops, how I still thinking about that, how it is related to the reality, when we do the crop mapping. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, your inputs will be the crop points collected, right? We collect, I don't know, polygon for cassava, polygon for rambutan, different, all the crop types are points or polygons here. What happens in the hidden layer is that, the model applies a bunch of weights to the input data where, you have a transformed data here, and then it captures like the most important features of your data. So here in the hidden layer, and that's why it's called hidden, like we don't really see, the output of it, but it's just a bunch of processing where the model is basically just understanding how your data is. So it's learning about, the structure of cassava, let's say, how, the rambutan looks. So it's a lot of processing. And then at the end, the output here would be our crop map, right? Our crop classification in the end. And then depending on the error here, it goes back here to adjust all the weights and do these change these functions here that are applied. So Marias, is the hidden layer helping to group? Yes, it does a kind of like a association kind of clustering exercise. Yeah, it is. Did that help answer the question, Dr. Senbang?
Yes. Okay, Andrea. Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just go back really quick to go through this again. So we have just, very simple example here where we have this green class and then the red class, right? And we define that we cannot use just one line to separate the data set, right? Because if we do a line here, these points do not belong to the green, right? They belong here. They should be on the side. So we define that we do need a hidden layer because the data is non-linear, right? We could separate by doing this, right? Now they are separated, or we could also do the other way around. We can do like this. So it's non-linear relationship between our input data set. And that's what we have here, right? So we first draw, this is called decision boundary. And then after you do a decision boundary, you split it into a set of lines, because the decision boundary changes direction, and then each line that you draw here, these are connected, and these will be the number of neurons in your hidden layer. So we can establish here that we need 2 neurons in our hidden layer because we have 2 lines, right? And they are connected because they are part of the same hidden layer. And then after that, because this right here, these 2 lines as they are, we had 2 inputs. This is our input layer. I'm sorry about my drawing skills, but now our hidden here in the middle, we have 2 neurons, right? And this goes like this goes like this goes like this, and this goes like this. So the way they are right now, like separated, just a set of 2 lines, it means that they're going to output 1 value each. And we don't want 1 value each, right? We want just 1 output. Let's say we want our crop map, or which type of crop it is. So what happens is this gets connected, and this is what this is our output layer. It's our output neuron. So instead of having 2 like this, by connecting them, you're gonna have, I'm trying to find the, okay. So you're gonna have just 1 here in the middle, where it's just 1 output. So disregard this right here. This is what the connection means. You're gonna have 1 output from the classifiers. So it looks like this, right? You have your input layer of x1, x2, which is the 2 types of data. You have 2 neurons in your hidden layer, which are the 2 lines, and then we connect them because we want just 1 output. We don't want 2 outputs. We just want 1, right? This is one example. Is that clear, Sivan?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is clear.
Okay, great. And Maria, so what is the last neuron that connects? So that's the output, right? That's the last neuron. We get our final, let's say like we were, I don't know, the dog and cat type of classification. Here we would get only dog or only cat, right? Depending on what the classification gave. Like if this had 2, this could be another hidden layer where we're applying different sets of weights. It's learning more about the data. And we're going to see this. We're going to see like, when do we need more hidden layers? When the relationship between, the sample data, like the dog and the cat, gets too complicated, then we're going to need to add more hidden layers. But this is just like the simple example, like a visual scheme, so you know how many hidden layers and how many neurons you have. So this is example 2. It's similar to example 1 where you had 2 classes, but this one is more complicated, right? So what I want you guys to do is either go to the Google Jamboard, or grab a piece of paper and pen, and I'm gonna give you guys, like, I think around 10 minutes to see, how you're gonna draw your decision boundary, how many like hidden layers and neurons you think this example needs. Does that sound good for the exercise? And look, again, there's no like right or wrong. We're gonna look into one of the solutions, but it's, you are the designer, so you can think of this as in different ways, and that's fine. This here it's good to see, how people are working, but if you want to just grab a piece of paper and pen, that's fine. Do the options that we choose to draw the boundary impact the output? Yeah, so like depending on how many neurons or how many how many hidden layers you have, then yes, it's gonna impact the output. And if you need more piece of paper here, you can, just create more. I can create more here. If you want to share the same piece of paper, that's fine. But you can change here if you want to go to a different one. And if this is too complicated, too hard, then just use a piece of paper. So I'm gonna just count here around 10 minutes. And feel free to, if you have the option, like talk amongst yourselves, see what other people are thinking. Yeah, I'm seeing very interesting drawings in the Google Jamboard. That's great. And if you haven't yet, you can try, getting to the how the structure would look like. By that I mean, you have your inputs after you drew, the decision boundary or your lines, how many, hidden layers you'd have if you have more than one, how many neurons you have for each hidden layer. Try to draw that as well. And if we're done, I think a little bit less than 3 minutes left. If you want, you can put, the number of hidden layers and how many neurons you have per hidden layer in the chat if you feel comfortable. And again, there are many ways to do this. We're just gonna show one, but it'll be interesting to see, how you guys thought differently or not. Okay, we have a couple answers. Maria said 1 layer, 2 neurons. Maria said 1 layer, 3 neurons. That's good. Just give 1 more minute. I think so. Yeah, an issue might be that the drawing is not exactly the same. So, and that's fine. But it might affect some of the results. Okay, we have some really cool drawings here. Wow, I'm impressed. Look at those circles. Okay, is everyone good to go, or you guys need more time? These are super good. Okay, someone had like 2 hidden layers. That's awesome. Everyone had their time to finish.
Yes, please give us the answer. This is
You're so curious, right? All right.
suspense.
So this is one way that they found. You have these like 3 curves. So according to those guidelines we saw before, those steps, the first step is just drawing this decision boundary. And then after drawing the decision boundary, you already can see, these points where, your boundaries start to, change the direction, right? So that's what you're doing here. You're just marking here where your boundary is changing the directions. So in this case, we're, how many lines are required, right, to get this. So each of the, the top here, the top and the bottom points that we saw, those gray circles here, the top and bottom, they have 2 lines associated with them, right? So for the top one here, it's this one and then this one, and then for the bottom one is this one and then this one. And what happens is, so this is 4 lines, and what happens is this in between point here, it has the same lines, right? It's the same line. So the bottom here is sharing this line with the in between point, and the top point is sharing this one, right, with this in between point. So because the first hidden layer will have hidden layer neurons equal to the number of lines, the first hidden layer will have 4 neurons, right? Because we drew 4 lines, right? Even though like it seems like there's more, it's just 4 lines, right? This one here in the middle is just sharing. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 neurons in the first hidden layer. Then the network in this case would generate 4 outputs, right? 1 for each line, 1 from each neuron. And the next thing to do is to connect all of these neurons together in order to make, the network generating just a single output, like we saw in the previous example. So in other words, the lines are to be connected together by other hidden layers to generate just a single curve. And how, and this is where, you can do whatever way you want. You could have your 2 outputs, you could have the 4 neurons here, and then have just a single output. We're gonna show a different way here. So another way to do is build a second hidden layer with 2 hidden neurons. So we talked about, the first hidden layer has 4 because it has 4 lines. So the first hidden neuron will connect the first 2 lines, and the last hidden neuron will connect the last 2 lines. And the result is going to be like a second hidden layer. So, and that's what we're doing. We're connecting these 2 lines, right? The first 2 lines and then the second 2 lines. And this would be the second hidden layer. So there are 2 outputs for the network. And then after you have those 2 outputs, then you have your final output, right? Because we don't want 2, we want 1. So think of this, you had 4 lines at the beginning, that's your first hidden layer, so that's 4 neurons, and we are connecting those 4 neurons into 2 new neurons, right, in a second hidden layer, which are these connections here that we are making. And then the final output, we need to add another connection. So it would look something like this, right? We have the first hidden layers, which are our 4 lines that we drew. A second hidden layer would be these connections of the top and the bottom points here. And then the final output, it's this entire thing. It's 1, 2, and 3. So it could look something like this, right? You have the lines here in pink, you have the 2 connections as a second hidden layer, and then the output layer is just 1, right? Because we want just 1 output. So this is one option. I saw people drew differently, and that's fine. But this is just to show like how you would think about, to build your own neural network through these guidelines. So it's always thinking about, you know, how many lines you need after you draw your decision boundaries, and then, you know, how many like changes of direction you have, and that will determine if you need like another hidden layer, and how many neurons in each hidden layer. So like in this particular way that, you know, this is by someone else, like they drew, you need two hidden layers. The first one with 4 neurons, which are the 4 lines. Another hidden layer with the 2 change of trajectories from the top here and then the bottom. And then the output is just this other change of direction here, which is in the other direction. That's your output here. So that's one example. Was that like easy to visualize, or did it make sense at all? It's just a bunch of drawing. Like, how did you guys feel about it? Because now it's gonna get better. I have another example, not drawing one, a more fun one. But like overall, did that make sense? Like since the beginning, how to separate the two classes? This is just to get, you know, you guys starting to think about how to build a neural network. And there are many, I guess the answer is there are many options, right? And that's why we need like to try and test and add neurons, remove neurons and all of that, and see what gets the best result. So like since I guess day one, we've been trying to, you know, trying to say that this is an iterative process. Yeah, it was not easy. Okay. Yeah, it's a complicated uh, subject, right? It's really complicated. Okay, so now we have something more fun. We're gonna play with Tensorflow Playground. So no more drawing. So Tensorflow Playground is an interactive visualization of neural networks, where you can simulate in real time in your browser small neural networks and see the results. So you're basically building a little brain, right? You're gonna build a little brain. So I'm posting the link to the chat. So what we're gonna do, this is what you should be looking at. It should look something like this. It has, you know, a lot of options here. So I'm not gonna say anything now. What I want you guys to do is spend another 10 minutes just playing with this, trying to figure it out, you know, what's happening, like what you can do. And then after that, we can talk about what each of these mean. But for now, I just want you guys to experiment with this and, you know, try to figure out what's blue, what's orange, like what these mean. You know, you have your hidden layers, and you know, here's where you play to run the model. And we're going to talk about all of these like epochs, learning rate, and all of that. But for now, just go into this website and you know, test it a little bit, see what you can find out about it. Does that sound good? I'm gonna put it here another timer, so we have time for a discussion as well. Okay, so again, okay, so you're just gonna go through into the website. This is a tool where you can create your neural network. So you have your features here, which are, you know, your input data. Your input data is here. And then you can, you know, create how many hidden layers you have, how many neurons you want to add to each hidden layer. And then, you know, once you play here, you get an output. But I don't want to say much. I want you guys to try, you know, figure things out like by yourselves. But later on, we will, you know, see a couple of examples of this. So for now, just you know, just click some buttons and see what you know, find out. But basically, what you're trying to do, you're trying to classify, you know, the blues and the orange, right? We want to separate the blue and the orange. So feel free to like click here and change stuff. How is everyone doing? Did you guys have time to play with it a little bit? You think you could understand a little bit, or is it just too complicated? Where things starting to make sense? Do you guys want more time? I'll take this as you guys are having a lot of fun playing with the neural networks. Training loss 0.275. Yes, it's complicated. I think it is complicated because there are so many options. Yeah. Right. Remember that, that I guess chart we saw yesterday where, the guy was like in this pile of data and different options, right? And he's like, oh, it's not working well. We just need to, just move everything and see what the output is. So that's basically that's exactly your comment. So yeah, there are many options. So like, how do you choose, right? Which one is the best? And that's the part where this is a iterative process. You have to keep changing things to see what yields the best result. Yeah, I think this is depending on their options. Yes, that is correct. So do you guys want to spend a couple more more minutes, or should we talk a little bit about it? Because you can spend more minutes and then we can talk about it later, or we can do it now. We still have a couple minutes for discussion, so it's better to talk. Sounds good. So, okay, so let's talk about this, right? What's happening? What are these, different options? So we can start here on the left side. This is just to choose our data set, and this data set is displayed here as set of points. And usually the colors here, orange and blue, you can see that they are used throughout this tool. And they mean like stuff in different way, but usually orange shows negative values and blue shows positive values. But these are our data points here, and we can change this to different data points. Think about the exercise we did before, right? In this case, for example, it would be super easy to separate those two classes, right? The orange from blue. Here, you don't even need a hidden layer, right? You just draw a straight line here to separate those two. But things get more complicated when your data like looks different, and this is the hardest case. We're gonna talk about this, but this is your data, right? You're choosing the type of data you're using here. The Just quickly, like the ratio of training to test data, we talked about this yesterday. Here's just setting to use 50% for training and then 50% for test. You can change that 70 training, 30 tasks, and you can, test different things. So here in the features, you have, which properties you want to feed in. So as I said, the colors here show, negative and positive values. So in this case, we're just using the vertical line. So our blue values are positive. That's why everything here on the right side is blue, and then everything on the left side is orange because it's negative. That's that's x1, sorry. X2 is the same thing. Again, this is just on the x-axis. This one was on the y, which is vertical. This one is horizontal, so it's the x-axis. So all the blue is positive, so that's why you see everything blue in the top, and then orange is negative, so everything below 0 there on the x-axis there, it's negative. You can add, this would be x1 squared. So what that means is, we have positive values which are blue, so everything, keeps being blue because, a positive number squared will be positive. And then all of our orange ones, they will turn blue as well, because when you square, that is going to become a positive value, right? That's why you're seeing like everything blue there in the background. So yeah, so the background here, that means the results, your output, like in this case for this specific neuron, this specific one. If you do, this is x2 squared, the same thing, you're gonna get everything blue because we're squaring things, so everything turns positive and blue is positive. You can multiply one by the other, so you're gonna get, a different relationship here where you have, each corner you have negative values, the other corner you have positive values. You're just multiplying. Positive with positive is positive, right? Positive negative, you get negative, and negative negative, you get positive. So that's pretty much what's happening. Then you have the sign of your x1 values and the sign of your x2 values. So that's the sign function. So I'll just run this. When you run, here what's showing, it's trying to distinguish the blue from the orange, and you can see that it already did, right? This should be done because it's already distinguishing what's in the middle from what's outside. You can see that when we do this, our test loss is super low, and that's what we want. Like if we let this run, you probably reach 0. It already reached 0 for the training loss. So that's what we want, right? We want everything to be like super minimal here because we saw that loss means error. And this is the curve that shows, the loss. And, the more you let it go, the more it's learning, right? That's what we talked about neural networks. It's always learning, learning, learning. So if you let this run, it's going to learning more features. Now it's not making much difference, right? Because it probably went through all the specific details about the data set. And we saw that you ran for 1.29 epochs. So what this means is an epoch is, one epoch is when an entire data set is passed forward and backward through the neural network, only once. So think about, all of our points here. That means that all the points went more than one time through the neural network, and you learned, right, through that process. So sometimes not in this case, but sometimes when you have, a very huge, massive data set, one epoch is, too big to feed into the computer at once. So we can divide this into several small batches. So, as the number of epoch increases, more number of times the weights, there's a typo here, weights are changed and more learning takes place, right? So here you can see the batch size, right? So this one is just feeding, 10 points at a time. You can, change this to have more points at a time. So that's, epoch is, one epoch means that your entire data set went through your network, and you divide that into different batches. So you put 10 first, and then 10 after, then again and again and again. So you can think about batches as iterations. So let's say here in an example, we have a training set with 2,000 data points. Instead of feeding those 2,000 data points at once in your neural network, you divide it into batches of 500. So that means that you take 4 iterations to complete one epoch, right? Because 4 times 500 will yield your 2,000 data points. The batch size is 500 and iterations is 4. And this is just a graph showing like different batch sizes. And here's a percent error. So the more the more epochs you have, the smaller is your error percentage, right? Because the model is learning, it's getting more data, so it's learning more, right? The more new data you feed into the model, it learns new stuff. So it gets better at predicting a new value. So the error goes down. So that's what this epoch means here. When it reaches 1, is because all your data points, your training set went through your neural network. We also have learning rate. So right now it's set for 0.03. There are many other options here. As you can imagine, like this is very slow. So you can see like it seems like nothing's changing, right? Because the learning rate is so slow, right? It's different if we did something like, let's say 3 here, then it goes crazy, right? Because it's doing things super fast, right? And we're going to talk about this. You can see like this curve here is very different from what we've seen before, right? We saw something like, it starts very straight up and then starts to flatten, right? Because the error is going down. So for learning rate, this is a hyperparameter that controls how much to change the model in response to the estimated error each time the model weights are updated. So we talked about like backpropagation, right? The model, gets a result, it looks at the errors of that result, and then it changes the weight. So it minimizes that loss, right? It minimizes the error. So learning rate is like how fast the model is changing those weights. If you have, a very small learning rate, the changes go, they go too slow, right? So it cannot reach that minimum point where your loss is 0, right? Let's think of this as, the parabola that we saw yesterday as well, where we want to reach the minimum point here where, the error, the loss is minimal, right? So if you have something very small, it's going to take forever, right? Your model is going to take forever to learn what it needs to learn to output a good output. Just right is, it reaches that minimum point, at an optimal learning rate. But if you have too high, it's gonna make too much abrupt changes to the weight. So it's not gonna be able to go down here. It's gonna like jump around. Your weights are gonna go crazy, and that's why we saw that behavior when we increased here the learning rate to 3, because it's not being able to go here at the bottom, just making just drastic updates to the weights. That's what the learning rate means. It's like how fast your model, how like abruptly is changing the weights. And the weights, as we can see, these are the lines, right? Those are the weights. They're gonna have different values depending on what the model is learning. But the learning rate is like how fast it's changing this weight and how abruptly. The activation, that's the activation function that is going through these hidden layers. We talked a little bit about this, like we mentioned ReLU, that's the one that, it returns 0 for every negative value and returns the value for every positive value. Right now we're doing this 10, but there are different, there's sigmoid, there's linear, ReLU. For now, we're just gonna leave as is, but these are just the options that you can change. Regularization. We did not talk about regularization yet, and it's a form of regression that prevents overfeeding. So we talked about overfeeding yesterday, right? And that's overfeeding is it happens when we saw like when your model is trying too hard, to capture, all the single details of your training set. So that's called like noise, right? We're capturing too much of the detail, so it gets too attached to your training set. But then when you try to apply your model for a test set, the results are not so good. So what regularization does is it's a form of regression, and it tries to discourage the learning process, so that it doesn't do this like overfeeding. It tries to make your learning process more like this, right? Like good, not too much. So that's what regularization means. We don't need to worry too much about it now. But there's L1 and L2. They're just different ones. And there's the rate as well, which is similar to the learning rate, like how fast you want to apply that regularization to your model. And then problem type, we're going to focus on classification. We're not dealing with continuous data set. We're not dealing with like relationships. So we're not going to do regression. So for now, it's just classification. So, and then here we have, our features, which inputs are we feeding the model. Here we are using 2 hidden layers. Let's just do one and do like 2 neurons, and then see if it can distinguish here the blue from the orange. So again, the background color is what the model is outputting. You can see that it's having a hard time with just 2 neurons and one hidden layer, right? Because it's classifying these orange points here as blue, right, in the background. So it's not doing a very good job. But let's add another neuron to see what happens. You can see that it starts to look more circular. So okay, so now it was able to differentiate, right, because it has the blue in the background and the orange on the outside. So with 3 neurons it was enough, right? With 2 we had a really hard time. You could not distinguish the classes. Let's try with this spiral here, which is much more complicated. Like the model has to draw these boundaries, like those boundaries that we saw. Let's try doing like this. It's gonna have a really hard time. I shouldn't even do this, but you can see that it's not. You can start to see here in the background like it's some sort of start to curve, but it's not doing a good job. Let's add another hidden layer. Maybe add a couple more neurons. Let's see if this is too much. I'm still having a hard time. Okay, let's try, for example, increasing the learning rate a little bit. See if it makes any difference. Starting to make some kind of spirals here, is still having a hard time. Let's wait a little bit more. Not really, right? It's still not doing a very good job. Let's try adding maybe another hidden layer. Let's do 5, 4, 3. Okay, yeah, it's having a hard time. Let's add more input data, so that more features, so it's learning, different patterns from the data. It's doing something different. I think it's doing better than before because we're feeding more information, right? This is about information about our data set. We are seeing the relationship. We're seeing what it looks like. Starting to do a little, a better job. You can start to see that it's going around. It's looking a little bit better. Means that it's doing much better than before, right? You can start to see here the spiral pattern, and the more it goes, so it has fed half the data, so it still has halfway to go. So now, okay, so this is Okay, we have a result, right? So this is, it's separating perfectly, right? Maybe not perfectly, but it's pretty good, right? Because it did the spiral here. The, you know, the loss here is very low. And, you know, these, like the thickness of these lines mean, you know, the weight. So the thicker it is, the higher the weights. The colors are going to mean positive and negative. And you can see the output of each neuron here. And the final one is this one. Another thing I wanted to mention is we talked about like fully connected. Fully connected is like what we're seeing here. Like every single neuron is connected to the next one, right? Like you can see these lines are very thin, but like all of them are connected to each other. So that what means like fully connected neural network. Did this make more sense? Like we can try. So let's say we saw here 992 test loss 0.22 and 0.05. Let's try like a different activation function to see if it changes anything. So this is pretty cool, right? It's like a small brain. Like we built a small brain doing this.
Andre, can I have a question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, you know, I'm also thinking like relating it to the, you know, the reality. For example, the output we want to have, you know, a more, you know, I mean, more accurate output. For example, in terms of crop mappings, we do the mapping, say, for a cassava. Then we want like, you know, like high accuracy of cassava in the output. You know that most of the you know the output reflect the real cassava. But you know, if in this relation, or if you look in this diagram, whether how can we identify the number of sample, you know, as the input here that will provide the high accuracy for a certain crop and a certain, say, area, something like that, you know. Is there a way that we can say, okay, we need minimum number of sample in the field to represent cassava, and then we input it into the model, then yes, you can expect a very good high accuracy. Is something we can do, you know, or not? Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
You get me? Yeah.
That's a very good question. So like I don't think there is a right answer to that. Like if you talk with people that apply these neural networks, they will say that more data is always best. So I don't have like the right answer, like the minimum amount of points. It's really like a trial and error kind of situation. We did talk to, you know, some people like folks from Survey Mekong. They have applied, you know, they have a sugarcane mapping model, other types of, you know, crop mapping, and you know, we've chatted with them about this, you know, and they will say like 100,000 sample points are needed, you know, to have a good model. But it's I don't think there's a right answer. It's gonna be on us to try, you know, the training data, how many of those we'll need for the model. I know it's not the answer that I guess uh you want to hear, but yeah, like the more the better.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's
And
fine. Thanks.
you know, for like for each polygon that we are collecting, you know, we can generate, you know, more than one sample from that polygon, right? It's not like one polygon is one sample. It doesn't necessarily mean that. So we can generate like 10,000 samples from one polygon depending on the size of polygon. So I think we're yeah in a good position right now because we collected, I think we have more than 1,000 polygons. So collecting a little bit more and then testing to see how the model performs. I think we're in a good place.
Thanks.
So there's a question from Chaya. For sample points, how many picture for each point? What position or angle? So if I understood correctly, I'm not sure I understand the question. Like, are you talking about picture, like as in like a satellite imagery or just a regular picture? To feed machine learning, we need point and picture. Oh, okay. So I see like the sample data and the input imagery, right? So the point should be covering the imagery that you have. And we talked about this, like right now we're focusing on uh the pilot area, right? Rodanak, Mondal, and compared to Cambodia, like it's small, right? But that the sample from that area should be representative of the entire country. And that's another thing. Like if it's not, then we do need to collect from other areas as well. But it should be representative because it's not that the climatic conditions I don't believe change too much. But yeah, you're that's a good question. So this makes sense. Like, does it, seeing the animation, like seeing this, is it a little bit more clear how all of this works? I want to make sure we have enough time for discussion. We have about like 25 minutes left. But was this good, this exercise? And you guys can play more with it. Change more.
Yeah, and for me, this helped. I mean, the exercises helped a little bit to kind of understand how everything works after hearing yesterday. But I would really like to hear from the others what they
Yeah.
think.
Anyone would like to share? You can put in the chat or. And maybe, yeah, we can just straight dive into the discussion because it's kind of related, right? So if it didn't help, like, what do you think, which part you think is more complicated? Not only about, this exercise, but thinking about everything that we saw uh, these past 3 days. Any thoughts? Yeah, like Dr. Senvang and I kind of talked about this good amount of data, but like in an overall discussion, like what do you think was more complicated? Do you think, using this type of modeling like is going to be useful given the complexity of, data like the crop types we have? Yeah, it is. Yeah, Barrier, right? So that the talk is more about, the theory. We need to connect the theory with the practice. Yeah, with real sample from ground. That makes, I agree, the participant like understand better the theory. Yeah, the idea of this was indeed to like just give like a brief overview, like a concept kind of learning, and then for the future webinars we can do like the actual like coding and actually using the data we collected to get the outputs and see what happens, like how we can improve that. Yeah, so there's another question: what tools or software will be used in associated with the model? So we've been using Google Colab, Google Cloud Storage to run this, specifically like TensorFlow. So, like we saw the TensorFlow Playground. So TensorFlow is a package where we can run all of these neural networks, and we'll be using that. So tomorrow, I'm gonna introduce a little bit of it. We're not gonna do like any coding, but I'm just gonna introduce these tools and like environments where we're gonna be using these models. And then the idea is that, for the next webinar, we actually like do stuff like actually run the model. You guys, code and all of that. That's the next step. But tomorrow you're gonna learn about Google Colab and all of that.
Andrea, can I ask a question related to this, what Bore was saying? And also Dr. Wang saying, so if we think about like future, like going forward, are there some parts of the whole process that people absolutely must know, and that like we need to really focus on most of the attention there? Would that be the coding, or do people really need to understand how the whole system first works, or is this basic understanding enough? So I'm just thinking, like, if we are going to do this in the future, what would be kind of like what would the Cambodia team need to know? Like, yeah, what are the areas that they would need to really learn, and what are the areas that they just need to kind of have some basic understanding?
Right. Yeah. So I personally think like this basic overview that we did is enough, like knowing what, for example, overfeeding is, knowing what, activation function is, because this is the type of stuff that we'll be asking ourselves like later on, like, oh, which activation function are we going to use? And we know what it is and we can change that, right? And test. So I think knowing, like having this basic understanding will help us. Not, I don't think we need like the coding part super well, because we can reutilize some, just codes and scripts and just adapt it to our needs. But like knowing what, a hidden layer is, and knowing like, oh, do we need to add a function like a objective function or regularization, or a dropout process to improve, like when do we use dropout process, right? We talked about like when it's overfeeding. So when we know when it's overfeeding, when it does really well on the training data but not on the test data. So we know like when to kind of like make decisions. Yeah, I wouldn't focus too much like on the like coding part. and also like we talked about like recurrent neural network and convolutional neural network, and you're like, okay, maybe recurrent neural network is a good approach because it's looking into past data, it's looking into time series that can help with the phenology, right, of the crop type. That could be important information to distinguish, right, the crops and have a high high accuracy output map of the crops. But if we use optical data, like for Cambodia specifically, there's a limitation because of cloud cover, so that might not be a feasible approach. And then, because we have so many crop types, right, we want to be able to distinguish all of them. And that's a huge amount of data, right? We need good representation of each crop type in sample data. So like we do need a lot of samples. So like the convolutional, we saw that, it works like taking the most important information from a data and kind of downsampling it. So it runs faster, it's more efficient. So like these kind of like concepts and like terminology, I think it's better than just like, okay, you're gonna run this model when you don't know why you're running that model, like you don't know what the function means, or this kind of stuff. Yeah, but I agree, like if we practice, we will understand more about hidden layers.
Andre, Andre, yeah.
Yeah.
Andre, yeah. Andre, yeah. Thank you. Like we're talking about the model. I mean, we are also thinking about the sustainability. I mean, now we are doing the project, scale, which is a type of pilot. And for a period of the project, I think we cannot run the whole model because of still need more samples to represent the crop and to fit the model need. So I want to know whether this model, is it a kind of like, is it free kind of software that is free, or how, I mean, after the project, can our staff here, can our department here have that model to continue working on another province, or at least develop more inputs data so that we can have the whole mapping for the country. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question about sustainability. So currently, we run the models like in the cloud using the Google Cloud storage. Um, I honestly do not know how feasible it would be locally. Um, I don't see. Yeah, okay. Ate is not on the call, but yeah, I would need to get back to you. That's a very good question, and I don't know how we would move forward for that. I don't know if Karis, if you have anything to add regarding that, like running the model in the long term and for other provinces, because we do use like Google Cloud credits.
Yeah. So that's one thing where it's going to be important just to kind of think about connecting with the, well, honestly, it'll be fine either way. Connecting with Servier. Servier has a number of cloud credits available, so we can run this for free kind of long term just through partnership with Google. And we can do the same thing through Silva Carbon. So we can get the team set up with some of these free cloud computing credits. So that's not an issue. And then in terms of, like takeaway messages from this training, I think the two key things that are going to be really important is one, I want to make sure everybody's comfortable enough with kind of this overall mapping process that they can explain it to decision makers, and just, you know, understand how this is different than random forests or other mapping processes that you might be using. So that's the first thing, is just kind of general comfort with, like, what is a neural network? How is it different than other mapping applications we could be using? Why is it necessary for these crops? So just kind of like these key messaging to make sure that you're comfortable talking about the process for decision makers, or, you know, for like FREL updates. And then I think the second part is going to be getting the team able to run the models, but I wouldn't have that as the goal yet. What I would suggest is we keep doing research together, where we collect the reference data, Andrea does a bunch of testing, and we look at the map with you. And then once we have a map we like, we just give you kind of that calibrated recipe. You know, here's, if you're going to run this again for 2020 or 2021 or 2022, this is the, you know, essentially the cookbook that you would use. So you would set this many hidden layers, you would work with this kind of function, and you would do a CNN or an RNN. So we'll kind of help set this up, because it's a lot of research and a lot of calibration that goes into this. So we're just pulling on the whole Surveyor team to kind of do some testing with your feedback, and then we can get everybody up and running on the TensorFlow models, if that makes sense, as a strategy. Yes. So I'm just looking at your question, Bore, if you could run offline. And this we would definitely update on the call. But I know that Surveyor has done a lot of testing on their local servers, because it's a little bit cheaper. And then once they have a model that they like, then they run it on the Google Cloud Computing. So there's, you know, we have options there too. You don't have to run everything in the cloud computing environment.
And I just want to add that I think that the servers that the Surveyor is using are the same servers that Bore, you have. It's the UMD servers that maybe there's some specifications which are a little bit different, but in any case we can look into that, and I mean, we can definitely set up things in a way that you can run them offline as well. I mean, as much as possible, have everything done offline. That would make a lot of sense to me in the long term.
Yes, yes, that is a very good point. You know, that Bore raised, and good feedback from you as well, Maria. Yeah. So I think we work together, like Karis mentioned, work together to make sure that we have, you know, the good data we run, and we are also comfortable with the outputs. And then, okay, if we are okay with the pilot as we have done in this project, then we can continue to work in another province, and, you know, to a larger scale for the country. Yeah, I think that's good, and looking for the long term as well, because this is not just one time, because I think we need to, you know, update our crop mapping changes over time as well. For example, for a period of 5 years, 10 years, you know, what it look like, you know, maybe something has changed, you know, in a certain period. So I think that's why we need to think about the sustainability. For example, whether we can build, how can we build this capacity with the government organization, like my department, you know, and within MOE as well, you know. And of course, even the capacity build doesn't mean that we will not need cooperation. Of course, it is impossible to work alone, you know. So we need cooperation to have technical support from your team, you know, yeah, or the expert, yeah. So I think this is, I think, a great start, yeah, for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Van. What I also want to mention is that, I mean, this neural network thing is a new thing, right? And what we are doing now is really, I mean, this is like the latest, we are applying some of the latest techniques which we know of, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work. And if we are not happy with the result, I mean, we can still continue working on improving the crop mapping. And I mean, we can think about many other ways we can do more field data collection. We can just work on more like a time series. We can try to get better high resolution data. So our goal is really to build capacity at the team level, and we're not so interested. I mean, from Silver Carbon perspective, we are not so interested in the process. We are just interested in the fact that people in your department are able, as Karis mentioned, to run the process, explain the process. Well, in this case, maybe they don't have to explain because you are already following, so you are the decision maker. But in some cases, like for example, if we need to talk to some higher level officials to explain what we are doing, and also to explain to the international community what we are doing, so what you are doing. So I think the capacity building part is the most important from my perspective. And then what the process is going to look like, it's maybe the second level. For me, it's not so important. So if this doesn't work, we can try something else. So we are not, this project doesn't have a time frame. We are lucky in that way. We can, I mean, for now, this is a long-term project. So we don't want to think about, oh, we have to finish by October. Okay, if by October things don't look good, let's try something else in November. So yeah, I mean, a little bit more kind of focused on the capacity building, which is why I want to ask the questions on what is that the team needs to learn, like what are the topics that they absolutely must know if they want to apply this on their own. So this is something that I would like to kind of understand better from the trainers. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, I think like personally, I think just, the concepts and what Karis mentioned, like why should we use this instead of, or just a regular like random forest approach? Like why are we trying to do this? And I think that's the main takeaway in this case. Understand the concepts, why we are trying to do this, and then move on from there. And again, yeah, as you said, Maria, like we don't need to use this if we see, if not comfortable with the outputs, we can, always try new approaches.
As long as people have time. I mean, that's also, I mean, we don't want to waste people's time. So as long as you have time and your team thinks that this is useful and you're learning something, I think we can keep on trying. But yeah, we don't want to do trainings just because we don't have anything better to do. So I mean, we need to have an open discussion about this, and we'll see how things will look.
Right, yeah. And I think, yeah, now, the next weeks that, our team will be doing more of the research and trying, running the models, we'll have a better idea of that and sharing those map outputs. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, what do our colleagues from FAO think? Because yeah, I mean, we are also collaborating as part of the CBIT project. what do you guys think about this whole process? Maybe it would be good to hear.
Maya, can I have raised one question? Yeah. Hello.
Yes, please, Safira, go ahead.
Okay. Just I go through the agenda that we have pop up in the share folder. That it have the adjust for the agenda or what, because like we have the discussion in the first day of the training, that we will be look through the result of the testing that Udam and the one more guy working with your team, that testing to show how is the model is run, and then we will be have the discussion in the detail how we are working on this, and also relating to the training in this 2 day that we have learn more on the just a basic of the how is the new of the model runs, and also this is the first step that building for the understanding for the processing of the model, but we still in the first step, that learning on the machine learning or what is the model is working, so that it is difficult that to respond to all the questions that you are here.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
go
Please
go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, Maria, do you wanna go first or?
no, please go ahead.
Yeah, so with the data that Udam and Sopanya worked, that was very recent. It was last week that we finalized that work. So I have not yet tried to run, the model with that new training data that they collected. So that's in the plans for the following weeks.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Go ahead, Safira. Sorry.
Okay, so just back to this, it means that we are in the step of the learning by doing, and also try to be understand for the model together with the developer of the model also. That is we are in the step 0 of the working with this tool, and then also the produce for the crop mapping, right?
Right. That is, yeah, exactly correct.
Yeah, and I'm just looking to kind of connect with what Bore was mentioning in her message. So she is suggesting that the team should jump to the on-the-job training. So with that in mind, especially because I know, Andrea, you want to have Sopanya and Udom keep on working. I would like to ask if there are any volunteers from GDA and MOE to join that team. That would be great. But if people are busy, we can also just continue working with Udam and Sopanya, since they kindly agreed to dedicate their time already. So, and then I think that is the part of the on-the-job training. At least that's how I see it. That's a good way for people to actually do the tasks. And then in terms of the final output, that's a very good question. I still have problems with that. I think it's the crop type mapping. It's not agricultural land mapping, but I would really, open this for discussion. Yeah. Right. Do people think that we are trying to map the crops? Because that's how I understand that we are not going to do like an agricultural category map. We are really looking into more details with this process, mapping specific crops or crop types.
Yes, I think, can I say, Maria? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please.
Excuse me. Yeah, I think we should do the specific crop mapping. But I think in the previous, in the first day, Andrea also show the category of the, of the crop types, like it's more like we have perennial, we have seasonal or something like that. So, maybe we need to do something that is more, that kind of crop type. So we can select to do something that is more, I don't think that it is easier, but I want it more easy to identify, to work with the model, For example, those seasonal crop, for example, cassava, maize, they are, probably changing seasonally, so maybe not consistent in the same growing area. But for other perennial types of crop, for example, here we have oil palm, we have coconut, we have mango, I think we have mango, cashew, long, and they're more, reliable in permanent orchards, something like that. So yeah, probably we can, but for us, for Cambodia, some of the we may need to think about the priority crops that we should focus if we cannot do all, because if we do all, it is good, but I don't think that it's going to be applicable for us. But we can start with some priority crop and we discuss on that. Yeah, I don't know, but maybe what is the total number of crop here? But rubber more or less already mapped. Oil palm more or less already mapped. Yeah. But the crops need to be mapped, so we can select, for example, the broadleaf tree crops. Yeah, we have cashew, mango, longan. Probably are the priority crops. Yeah. The shrub in the perennial, we have pepper, of course. Yeah, we can do it. Yeah. And then for annual crop, of course, we have cassava, maize, rice. Of course, rice is more or less mapped, and it's bean, yeah, bean like group of soybean, mung bean, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I think look like a good selection, yeah, of such crop, yeah. Coconut oil palm, yeah. So, yeah, banana also, yeah, we have banana here, and sugar cane. Do we have sugar cane? Also, I think should, but sugar cane should also be mapped. Mango we have here. Yeah, seem to be included in this slide. The priority crop for Cambodia. Yeah. So if we can do like this, I think it looks pretty good. If we can then from that we can generate the data of the planting area of each crop.
Yeah, right. So thanks,
In
Dr.
the list.
Bansang.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
Yeah.
to add, and so Tan is also adding to the chat that yeah, he strongly agrees, supports the idea, and that is indeed what we've been trying to do. So first we were trying to, just classificate like, is it broadleaf tree crop or not? So just like a binary classification. And, we can do that with the other primary classes as well. And then, from then we can refine the model to the specific crop types. But the idea is, yeah, to classify like the broader group and then go into the more detailed types.
Yeah. And we might not be able to, get down to a specific tree crop type. Like maybe we can't differentiate coconut and oil palm, but we can differentiate the palm trees or the palm crops from the broadleaf tree crops. So that's really our goal at this first stage is can we get palm crops, shrub crops, and broadleaf tree crops mapped? And then from there, we can dive into these subclasses and see how much separability there is.
Yeah, and we are also on the side, we are also trying to see if we can possibly find even better resolution data. Like the data sources that are becoming available to us are improving. So even better than the planet data, so better resolution data, hopefully will then help us to maybe look into more like a crop level. Yeah, we will constantly try to improve this. So let's start with a bigger class, as Sotan is mentioning, and Dr. Wang Sen, you also said, and then go to the detailed class as much as we can, but without too many expectations, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that looks good to me. Yeah. I don't know, based on this list, how much time do we need to complete it? And from your experience, I don't know. Because we are pretty, I would say like ambitious, to have the first crop mapping work done for Cambodia ever, I think. Because previously we have the work done for land cover, focusing more on the forest cover. Yeah, not agricultural crop like this. I would say the first ever, work achieved. Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
The question is about time. So I don't know, Karis, and I also see Ate joined us. So you might have better idea, about the time frame. And we are talking here about the pilot sites only, not the whole country, right?
Yeah, and I think Andrea has a slide that says go to breakdown of what the our estimated timeline looks like. Is that in this presentation or is that in the first one? Yeah, right here. So this is phase 1 is going it's done. Phase 2 is where we are, so it's kind of doing the testing into July. And then hopefully by August, we can start doing some accuracy assessment, and we'll probably want to iterate again. So I would say, have a new map to look at by August. And then based on what we learn from that map, have probably iterate and have another map by September. So we'll know more by then. And I don't know, Ate or Andrea, do you want to add anything there? Whether or not you think that's reasonable or not.
Yeah, I put the slide together, so I think it's reasonable, but Ate has more experience, so I don't know, Ate, if you want to share anything.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I joined a bit late. Let me look at the timeline that you put together. So for this timeline, for how many different crop commodities are we talking about?
We have, I think, more than 10, but we are, like Mary Jane mentioned, we are talking at the project timeline, I mean pilot site in Battambang province, yeah. So at least, I mean, say, the pilot is in Ratnak Mandut, it's one district of Battambang. So the number in that district really has a diversity of crop that can represent crop grown in other districts in the province, yeah. And the number, I think the number of crop, like in the slide that Andre shows, probably, yeah, we have here, I think like more than 10, exactly, we count, yeah. Yeah. Say,
But for this pilot, we'll work just with these higher levels. So like palm crops, shrub, broadleaf, and annual.
Yeah.
That's
the next phase would be those subclasses, doing some experimentation.
That should work for the timeline that you proposed. Some crops are much easier than others, and we are testing many different algorithms now, also for the larger Mekong region. So I think this timeline really fits in also other activities that we're working on.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So we keep working on our timeline, yeah.
But so sorry, I don't mean to be the problem here. However, throughout this timeline, if we feel that the team in Cambodia is falling behind, they are not clear about what we are doing, we need to repeat the steps. We need to do that. So it might be December before we have things. So we can do this training one more time. People think we can do everything more times. So most important thing is at the end, for me, the most important thing is at the end of this, the team knows what we've done or what they've done and why they've done it. So we will take some time if we need to repeat things. So I just want to make clear that we are not so interested. I mean, I'm not so interested in the model as I'm interested in people actually understanding the model.
Yeah.
That is a very good point. That's also one of our main interests, and also we are very tight on staff to help us with this type of work for Severe Mekong, and we are also looking for people that are interested for internship and to work with us on this topic at Severe Mekong. So if there is anyone who has a particular interest in this type of algorithms, and I think it's a really exciting type of work, because this is really the newest technologies that we are working on, then please send us a message, because we are very interested to work with people one-on-one in the implementation of those algorithms.
Yeah, that's good, Ed. Thank you. Yeah, I think we should identify our staff, prepared to work with you. Yeah, on the job training. Yeah, thank you. That's good.
Okay, so considering that now it's almost 2 a.m. in Andrea's house, right? Andrea is already So that means it's very late for her. Should we wrap up for today and see if we can prepare for tomorrow?
Right. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Thanks. And thanks for all the feedback and the discussion and the concerns. This really helps. And yeah, just quickly, this is my last slide. So tomorrow, just gonna do a quick recap of what we did today, the previous 2 days, and I'm gonna show a little bit about the environment, like we talked about sustainability, like where we're running the model, that kind of question. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit briefly about the environment. We're not gonna do any coding. I'm just gonna present how things work, where the model happens, where the data is stored, and that sort of stuff. And then we can have more discussion tomorrow as well. But yeah, thanks everyone. I hope the demos we did today were fun and you got a little bit better understanding about neural networks and how everything works. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks all.
Thank you. See you tomorrow. Yeah, Andre. Have a good sleep, Andre.
Thank you.
And see you everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Have
See
a
you
good day.
tomorrow, Marisha.
See you tomorrow.
See you.
And everyone.